Welcome to a behind the scenes video for Mr. Rental, the video game. A series here on the channel where our good friend Mr. Rental goes out of his way to ban all mashups. After 2 weeks of being kept in the dark about the final rips in Volume 7, you'd expect that 2 weeks is plenty of time to have a final episode for Mr. Rental. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So why do we have a behind the scenes video instead of the finale? Is it laziness or just laziness? We're going to cover that and more in our first topic, the finale that never was. Our second topic for the day, in an attempt to make up for the fact that there is no finale, we're going to be talking about the Mr. Rental series as a whole, where that idea came from, why it was made, and so forth. So, if anybody's interested in that, and doesn't have a problem with a monotone voice, we should be good to go. First things first. The Mr. Rental story never actually had a planned finale, which sounds a bit ridiculous. Why would you start a video series on something that clearly has a story and then not finish it? It's just bad storytelling. Well, there's no real explanation for that, that's just how it was. However, in the rips leading up to Chase's vlog, I did notice comments talking about the Mr. Rental story and how it hasn't been finished yet. And after seeing those, I thought it was only appropriate that I at least try to make a finale to close off the story. I never had the necessary drive to complete the actual video, so what we're left with is a half-finished video, some storyboarding and sketching, and the idea for the plot in my head. And I'm going to combine these all together to give you the most half-assed video you've ever witnessed in the Mr. Rental series.
What on earth just happened? Damn. The car. I'd better find out where I am. This place doesn't look familiar at all. I think I'm at the park, but for some reason it looks different. I know the way to my shop from here. Hopefully the route is the same. Mr. On, something is wrong. Everything looks exactly the same except for that name. Oh my god. This is some sort of hit list. Who's touching shit in my office? Freeze to stain? What the fuck? I want to ban all mashups because they sound horrible. I disagree. Then, guy. Swat. Any last words? Ban all mashups.
Upon seeing this, it is revealed that Mr. Rental is not actually Mr. Rental. Mr. Rental is actually Mr. Own. If you Google search Mr. Rental and you scroll down far enough, you will find a picture of Mr. Own. And Mr. Own is just a character on the Mr. Rental website used to explain an ownership option. Now in this episode, it is evident to see that Mr. Rental belongs in the Looney Tunes universe, and Mr. Own belongs in the Microsoft Paint universe. In the finale, Mr. Rental is sucked from the Looney Tunes universe into the Microsoft Paint one using the only link between the two universes, which is the crappily drawn car. When you analyze the Looney Tunes universe and compare it to the Microsoft Paint universe, you will notice that you won't notice, it's pretty damn obvious, that in the Looney Tunes universe everything is sleek, clean, nice straight lines, and so forth. And the only thing that's not sleek and clean in the Looney Tunes universe is the crappily drawn car. So this kind of hints at the fact that there's two universes and two Mr. Rentals. You'll notice in these two different types of videos that these two characters have very clear behavior differences, and some people have picked up on that. Mr. Rental in the Looney Tunes universe seems a lot nicer and actually offers some sort of lesson at the end of each episode, whereas the Mr. Rental in the Microsoft Paint universe has been seen to buy a cell phone outright. And Mr. Rental doesn't buy things outright because buying outright is for chumps. This was another subtle hint to the fact that there's actually two Mr. Rentals, and the one in the Microsoft Paint universe is not all he seems. Both these characters also share very different views about the way they see mashups. Mr. Rental never actually provides his own opinion on mashups, but Mr. Own just wants to ban them all. Personally, I'd side with Mr. Own, but the only reason Mr. Own doesn't like mashups is because Chip the Ripper murdered his family. There was supposed to be an episode pertaining to this, but that never happened either. I think that's all I have to say about the first topic. So, on to the second one. Where did the idea for Mr. Rental come from, and what is Mr. Rental? Mr. Rental is a rental company based in Australia and New Zealand. Their forte appears to be in renting out home appliances. One day I started seeing Mr. Rental posts in my Facebook feed, and I started to take an interest in his dank memes. Now normally when a company tries to use memes to connect with people who frequent the internet, it's cringy and doesn't really work too well. But Mr. Rental found a way to do it right, and is basically the Facebook equivalent of the Sonic the Hedgehog Twitter page. Now I need to give credit where credit is due, and the PR guy who runs the Mr. Rental Facebook page deserves a big shout out. He's an absolute legend. When the Mr. Rental videos started getting popular, people started going to the page and harassing him saying,
"Why did you ban mashups?"
Now I was very worried that we'd end up getting a cease and desist notice or something, but the guy on the page actually somewhat ran with it. I think he, of all people, understands that the meme business is a tough business, and occasionally you get the little jokesters running around. Back to what I was talking about before though, I started following the Facebook page and shared most of the posts from that page with the backroom members. They seemed to like it as well. But then something happened. I developed an unhealthy obsession for Mr. Rental. Now it's no secret that I don't like mashups. I even campaigned to have them removed in the early days. Because that was never going to happen, I decided to express my disdain during one of our first Seva Direct streams. So one night before the stream, I had created the opening music for Mr. Rental the video game, and in this episode I had Mr. Rental run over mashups with his crappily drawn car, and requested that it be played on the stream. Originally these videos were only going to be for the streams, but Chase let me upload it as a fake video game rip, and the rest was history. Now I think I'll talk about how these episodes were made, which is not really that special, but we'll talk about it anyway. Some people might be interested. All the scenery and objects used in those videos were all drawn in Microsoft Paint, as some would have guessed. Sure, it's possible to emulate the style in Photoshop, but you wouldn't be staying true to that style, now would you? There wasn't really an artistic reason for having poorly drawn backgrounds and items. Originally, I wanted to draw proper, really nice backgrounds with glass and all that cool stuff. But I knew that would take a really long time, and the backgrounds are not the focus of the video. It's the character, and his lust for banning mashups. So I decided to go with a poorly drawn Microsoft Paint world, because it's quick, funny, and no one can criticize me for being a terrible artist. Now the Looney Tunes videos, they didn't really have anything special going for them. It's just nicely drawn shapes all combined together. That's it really. The Looney ones are pretty boring. I made all these videos in Adobe Premiere Pro, and I don't think I'll mention how the videos were animated because it's fairly basic animating skill. Anybody can do it. I guess the last thing I can really talk about are lost episodes, or episodes I was too lazy to make. I can think of 3 episodes, I think, that were supposed to be made but never were. First of all, there was going to be an episode with Tito Dick and Mr. Rental, and they were going to have an epic fight. Now, I can't exactly remember the plot for it all. I'm pretty sure Tito Dick played some role in the uploading of mashups or something. I know that episode, he wasn't going to be able to defeat Tito Dick. It was just a fruitless battle that was doomed from the start. Another lost episode is Mr. Rental Visits Bel-Air, a tribute episode to one of my most disliked mashup sources I've ever heard in my time of being in this community. The final lost episode, and probably the most important one, was a flashback episode for Mr. Own. In this flashback episode, his hate for mashups would be explained when we see Chip the Ripper murder his entire family. This is probably the episode that I am most sad about because it explains a fundamental... It played a fundamental piece in the Mr. Rental story, and it was also fundamental for the closing of the Mr. Rental story when people would start to realize his hate for mashups. I think this is about all I can say about the Mr. Rental videos. I think it's about time to wrap up the video, and I'd like to wrap it up first of all with an apology. I'd like to apologize for not having a proper finale for the Mr. Rental series, and it would have been really nice to have a proper video for the series along with all these final rips. And now that the channel's over, it's a bit sad that the last Mr. Rental video is just me talking, but hopefully this video offers some closure for the story and makes up for the fact that there is no proper video. I believe some thank yous are in order as well. I'd like to thank you all for actually accepting Mr. Rental to be part of the channel, despite his hate for mashups. And I'd also like to thank the PR manager for the Mr. Rental Facebook page. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you for subscribing to the channel and allowing it to grow to be a big community of video game music enthusiasts, both who rip music and listen to it.